start our talk with our usual prayer to the Almighty. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. So we have been discussing the topic how to attain divinity, how to raise our consciousness to a higher level. And in this process, we have already covered a few issues. The most important issue, which I mentioned in the very beginning, is to recognize the path of divinity, that we are on the right path. And that we discussed that if we are expanding out in the world, then this is not the right path. We have to go deeper, and we have to go deeper inside ourselves, then we are on the right path. Now we talked about ego, we talked about mind, we talked about our habits. Now today I want to cover two things. One is the nature of this world, how it operates. And secondly, how we can be completely free of the results of our karma. I think that will give us an idea that how we can proceed faster on the path of divinity. It's very important to understand the functioning of this world, or the nature of this world. Now, if you look, we call it sansar. There are two words in Sanskrit, sansar and jagat. Jagat means the one which moves all the time. There's a gati jisme hai, with movement all the time. So that is one reality, that this world where we live in, it's changing all the time. It's moving all the time. It's moving like a river. As you never step into the same river again, you never step into the same world again, because it's constantly changing. Everything is changing here. All humans are changing, even the sun and planets are changing, even the earth is changing. So that is one explanation the Sanskrit word Jagat provides. The second explanation is even deeper, that is Sansar. We will deal with it slowly when we move further. Now, we have another word in Sanskrit called Dvand. Dvand is a very, Advait is one and Dvand is in contrast to Advait. That you have a conflict between the two situations, how do we deal with it? And this Dvand is created by our mind. Any thought which comes into our mind, it leads to duality. That whether this is correct or that is correct, we all the time, any situation you do, you always will have a second option, and that second option creates duality or dvand. Actually, the word duality, dialectic, doubt, they all arise from dvand. Dvand is the root of all those English and French words. Now, if you look at the Western philosophers, they have always seen the world in duality. You talk about, Karl Marx, you talk about Hegel, you talk about Freud, you talk about any other, important Western recent philosopher. They always have seen the world in a dual form. They talk it in terms of thesis and antithesis, and then the debate. They say, okay, does God exist? The other will say, no, the God doesn't exist. They will debate, they will have some sort of argument, and they will have synthesis, and then come to some sort of conclusion, but that conclusion still remains with duality. The duality never disappears. Actually, it started way back with Plato's dialogue. The word dialogue itself means a duality. But you arrive so-called Advait only after you start with duality. So the reality is that you have to start with duality, and then slowly you reach at what you call one single unity. So the Western world has always seen the human behavior in terms of duality. They will, for example, Karl Marx will say that the man is the creation of the society. The how the society treats the man becomes. If somebody has become a thief, it is because the social circumstances in which he lived were like this, so that he was forced to become a thief. Somebody becomes terrorist, then they will say the circumstances were like this. He was grown up in poverty, he was grown up in such circumstances, society contributed and he became terrorist. So these are the explanations which are given by the Western civilization to what we call human behavior in variety of ways. This has been actually a negative factor in human development. Because if you feel that man is the creation of the society, then you will never try to improve. You are justifying his cruel behavior, his wrong behavior, his poor tendencies in life by giving justification for that. So that has been the interpretation, and that is the reason that in Western society, lot of wrong habits have not been able to they have not been able to change them dramatically. They only provide justification for their existence. If you look at Freud, Freud has always been talking about the sexual energy and how it can be, distorted through human conduct. And that is why you see the whole entire Western world is what you call focused on sex. So different variations, whether it's a food or it's a clothing or it's a perfumery, it's travel or holidays, whatever you take, the focus remains there because these tendencies have always been very prominent in the Western civilization. And they look at the world in what you call divided way, that there's a good and there's a evil, and there's a death and there's a birth and there is a peace and there is a war. That is how they look at the world. But the Vedanta looks it in a very different way. This is a very different angle in which our Shastras have looked at this duality. In fact, we do not consider it as duality. We consider it the two sides of the same coin. That's how we have always looked at. Because there can be no birth without death, and death is simply the other side of the birth. That's how we look at it. If somebody is doing evil, this is only because he has seen the what you call bad side of the good, and that's why he's performing evil. But if you look at some of the great people, look at Prahlad, for example. He was born in a family which was which is called Daitya family, which was family which was totally against the Almighty, totally against the existence of what you call the goodness. And despite that, he became the greatest devotee of all time, uh, facing those circumstances. You would see a large number of good people coming in on this earth, coming from very poor families, coming from very backward background. In fact, people who are born in very rich families not necessarily become very good. In fact, the impact is opposite. So we have not seen the so-called social impact on individual. We have seen the other way around, that individual, if he is determined, he can change the society. He can entirely transform the circumstances in which people are living. And that has been the focus of Vedanta, that one single human being can transform. And that is the force behind raising our what you call the level of consciousness. Now, in Vedanta, you cannot imagine, for example, you talk about a mountain. Mountain is high up, but the mountain arises because there's a valley somewhere. The valley is the region for mountain to come up. If we see the light of the day, the night is the route through which the light of the day comes. So there's a uniformity, there is a unity between the so-called opposites in Vedanta. And that unity has been explained in great detail. And that is what we have to imbibe. We should not look at the world in divided form. We should not look at the world in the opposites. We should actually change our thinking that all these so-called opposite looking things, they are the synthesis of unity. They come from the unity and they lead to unity. I cannot imagine anything in this world which has only negative side, because as soon as the manifestation happens in the world, the unity becomes duality. That is the nature of this world. So the whole existence is dual in that sense, if you look at that way. But you have to change your thinking that this duality is not really a duality. It appears like a duality, but inherently it has a unity. For example, you look at the two banks of the river. They are totally different, opposite facing each other. But you see, there's a ground below the river which joins them together. Without that ground, the two banks can never exist. So that there's a ground which joins the two banks, and the two banks appear separately, but they are joined together. The same is true with war and peace. The same is true with pain and pleasure. The same is true with day and night. The same is true with dukh and sukh, whatever we talk. So this is one analysis which I have been meditating over the last several months, that we have to stop looking at the world in so-called opposites. The opposites are not really opposites. They are reflecting the manifestation of a unity. It is the exactly same way as you look at the gold. Now you, out of gold you can make very opposite looking pieces. You can make say 10 million different variety of ornaments. Some of them are meant for your feet, and some of them are meant for your ears and nose and face. Some of them may be meant for some other parts of the body, or maybe only for decoration, but they come from the same gold, and they are gold. In fact, if you go to a goldsmith and give him a piece of jewelry, he will not look at the piece of jewelry, he will look at the value of the gold contained in it. And he will evaluate based on that content of the gold. So the unity is always there. We look at poor people and we give them, oh, they are very, very poor. Uh, if there is a riches, there has to be poor. If there is a, the opposites are a reality. The manifested world exists in opposites. If there's a man, there has to be a woman, and that's how the world will run. So this factor we have to understand, that though the world looks, uh, you know, opposite in its appearance, but that is not really opposite. That is the manifestation of same unity everywhere. There's a thread of unity which flows all over this world, which unites everything if you go deep down. Now let's take the example of day and night. Now, night is very different than day, and it looks very, opposite if you look at that way. But think little deeper. How will you define day if there's no night, first of all? Secondly, the day is manifestation of your energy. You work all day. You are looking at the outside world. Now, if you don't take rest at the end of the day, your energy will be depleted completely. You will not be able to, do anything more later on. So the rest is important to preserve your energy of the work. So in the night when you sleep, that energy is restored so that you are fit for the next stage work. So though they are looking opposites, they are not really opposites. They are purak. They are actually complementary to each other. They complement. That is how the Vedanta looks at the so-called opposites, that they are complementary, they arise from the same force of unity, and they just appear opposites. So this appearance of the opposites we should understand in our day-to-day conduct. Then we will feel that this world does not reflect what we call contradictory values. No, they are not. They are manifestation of one single unity in various facets. So that is what we have to learn. We have to stop that doubt. We have to stop thinking in dual terms when we look at things again. Think when you go and see a shadow of a tree, the shadow comes because there's a light. There's no If there's no light, there can be no shadow at all. So the light and shadow are connected, though they look very opposite in terms of appearance. So this is very important factor which we have to reconcile in our mental frame, that the world represents unity, but the manifested world uh, gives an impression of opposites, which is not really opposite. They are actually the same part of one single unity, and the world is one united form. If we go deeper down, how we are united, look at our own life. Now, our own life, how do we survive in this world? Firstly, if we look at what do we breathe, we breathe air which comes from this outside world. We eat food which is produced because of various facets of nature. You have five elements of nature interacting with each other, which produce our food, which comes to us. Then we have a system in the body which disposes the waste and converts a lot of things into our body parts. Now, all this thing is what? It is one whole universe is working in unison. It's working in a united form to keep us alive. We will not be alive if there's no air in the space, if there's no space to live in, if there's no food to eat, if there's no habitation to live in, if there is no clothing to wear, if there's you know we are not able to mingle with others in the society, our life will become practically very difficult, extremely difficult, and almost impossible to live. So the whole universe is working in one single unity to make us survive. So there's no question of opposites. All these opposites merge into one single unity, and that makes us survive. So the life moves because of this unity. This is one facet we must understand when we are talking about rise towards divinity. And that thinking automatically leads us to think divine, that this whole universe is contributing to my divinity, and I should not look at the world in the opposites and the broken forms. So this is one point which I wanted to emphasize today. The next point is, how do we get out uh, from the role of a doer? Now we talked about ego. Ego is one factor which gives rise to the what we call doer. The feeling of doer comes because of ego. That is one part. But ego is even deeper down. Ego is not only the doer. It If somebody doesn't say you good morning when you are entering the office, even ego is hurt. There's no question of doer and not done there. For example, you go to a meeting and you are not properly received, your ego might get affected. So that is, if ego is far deeper than only the doer. Doer is one aspect of ego, and that is, of course, very important aspect in the world of day to day where we live. Now, this is where we have to be very careful that as soon as we give importance to the doer, we are not closer to the divine. If we want to be closer to the divine, we have to suppress our own what you call ego of doer, that I'm the doer, I'm doing it. And I just gave the example that our life is possible because the whole universe, the samasti, works for us, and that's why we are alive. Now we think that I am keeping the whole world alive. That is exactly the opposite of what we understand in reality. The whole existence existed before I was born, or any one of us was born, and will exist even after we are dead, millions of years after we are dead. So we are not the one who are keeping this existence alive. We are alive because of this existence. And that is where our doer form has to somewhere disappear. The doer is coming out of total ignorance. And that has been deeply explained by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita in a variety of forms. I will take one or two verses from Bhagavad Gita to explain that, but we must understand that ego is behind the what you call the thinking of doer, but it is ego is even deeper than that. Ego is far deeper. This is one manifestation of ego, and this manifestation in outer world is extremely important. We have to think. As soon as we think that I am the doer, the God is far, far away from us. The divinity is far, far away from us. If we want to be closer to the divinity, we have to disappear. कबीर ने भी कहा कि जब मैं हूं तो हरि नहीं था और हरि है तो मैं नहीं हूं. मैं नहीं हूं तभी हरि होगा. When I'm not there, then only you can see the Almighty. That is the real truth of our existence. And that is why there's a lot of emphasis on surrender. Surrender to the Almighty. Surrender to this existence, this whole existence. And actually, deep down, we cannot exist without this existence. That is what the example I gave, how we live and how we survive. So we have to think in that direction, that we lose the thought of that I am the doer. And as soon as we start losing that thought, our ego will go down, down, and we will have a feeling of surrender to this existence. And that will be the real, what you call, height of divinity. So let me, explain here this word sansar, which we talked about earlier. We talked about Jagat, and now let me explain a little bit about sansar. Sansar is this wheel. You see a wheel in our national flag. That is the wheel. You see mandala in Buddhist, writings. That is also a wheel. Everything in this universe exists in the form of a wheel, whether it is the earth or whether it's the sun or any other planet or the galaxies, or everything keeps circling all the time. And this sansar reflects that circle. Sansar means all the time circling, and as long as we are in the sansar, we will keep circling. There's no way we can get out of it. If you want to get out, if you want to go for so-called moksha or nirvana, then you have to jump out of this circle. Jumping out of this circle is important, because this sansar will not allow you to get out. You will keep rolling all the time. You're just circling here. And that circling is what has been explained in Vedanta, is the what you call birth and rebirth and birth and rebirth. It's like a chain which continues all the time. It's never-ending process. Circle never ends. So this is where we are stuck. If we want to get out of it, we have to jump. And to jump, we have to get out of the feeling that I am the doer. We have to develop what we call inner feeling of real surrender to this existence. This existence is keeping me alive. I am not the one who is keeping this alive. I am only a small little coke somewhere which has been created to perform a small little function by this universal consciousness. And that is the function which I'm doing mechanically, automatically. I'm not the doer. I'm not contributing anywhere in the form that the world exists because of me. No, it is not so. So I will now read out two verses from chapter 3, that is verse number 7 and 19 from Bhagavad Gita. The verse number 3 is Yastitva indriyani mansa niyamapya ramamete arjun karmendriyam karma yogastate se visishyate. The first one is that the person should be able to control all his sense organs with his mind, and follow the karma yoga in the real sense, that you control your all the senses through your mind, and then act like a karma yogi, then you are reaching towards the divine path. That is the first step in that direction. The first step is to control the senses through the mind and then act like a karma yogi without the feeling of doer. And the next verse very clearly says that you should get out of the feeling that you are the doer. And that verse is verse number 19. Tasmat saktam satam satatam karyam karm samachar asakto hridayachar karn paramatmanokti purus. So the person who has become anasakt means you are not, attached to anything. And maximum and the biggest attachment is attachment to the work that you are the doer. That's the biggest attachment of all attachments. So you have to become anasakt from that attachment, eh? And then you continue to do all the karma you have to do, all the kartavya. Satatam karyam karma, all the time you are doing whatever is necessary to do, but without getting attached, without having the feeling that you are the doer. And if you are doing all this without attachment, then you will reach the divinity, you will attain the Almighty, you will be one with the Almighty. So this is what you call the most important element of reaching the divine. That you have to understand that this world is a cycle. It keeps running. It's sansar. It's jagat. It's all the time moving, and it appears like a duality. Everything opposite looks opposite, whether day and night and pain and pleasure, though they come from the same unity, in appearance they are opposite, but they are not opposites. So we have to look at that, not the Western philosophy which promotes the opposite thinking. We have to look at the Vedantic philosophy, that this world is all the time a cycle. It world is a jagat. It's all the time moving. It appears like a duality, but it is united, underlined. It has a thread of unity which runs throughout the entire existence. And in this process, we have to completely detach ourselves from the doer, the feeling of that I'm the doer. We have to detach from that feeling and then devote ourselves, surrender ourselves to this whole existence, and then you will reach the divine. So this is one of the very important, thinking process. It has to be, meditated upon. You have to think about it inside yourself. Then a feeling of detachment will come. Then a feeling will come where you are no longer the doer. When you feel that I am just flowing because the river is flowing and I am in the river, so I am flowing with the river. It is the story, you must have heard, that there was a fly which was, sitting under a bullock cart, and the fly thought that the bullock cart is running because of me. And a time came when the fly said, let me get out under the bullock cart so that the bullock cart will stop. So it flew away from under the bullock cart, and the shade it was getting, even that shade disappeared, and it was suffering in the heat. So instead of thinking that it was carrying the bullock cart, it started suffering. So that is precisely the situation of human being in this world. We presume that we are the doer, we are maintaining this, we are maintaining that. Because of me, this bank is running. Because of this organization is running. Because of me, this family is running. No, it is because of them that we are alive. Because of them that we are able to play our role. It is the exactly the other way around. So this feeling has to come. Otherwise, we will suffer exactly like that fly, and that will, even the shade which the fly was enjoying will disappear as soon as we feel that I am the doer. So this is where I would like to conclude this session on how to attain divinity. These are, the basic principles. Of course, we can discuss more about many more principles. But before I conclude, let me repeat these principles once again, so that we can have a consolidated picture of all that. The first important thing is that if we are expanding in this world more and more, it means we are on the path of this world, not of the divine. In order to be on the path of the divine, we have to go deep and deep, and we should go inside ourselves. We have to discover our own self. We have to leave our layers. And we talked about the layers, the layer of the body, the layer of the senses, the layer of the mind, the layer of the intellect. And we have to leave all these layers outside. And then the last layer of ego, we have to leave out. That is very, very important. Then we reach the core of our existence. So the first thing is we go deep and deep and deep inside our what we call core of the consciousness by leaving all the outer layers. That is first thing we have to do. And then the most important layer, that of ego, has to be, you know, done away with. We discussed how the ego reflects. The ego is reflected in the form of anger, in the form of jealousy, in the form of greed. There are various, manifestations of ego. So so long as we have these manifestations, it means we still have ego, and we have to get out of that process. Then we talked about mind, that we have to give better things to the mind so that it gets out of the inferior things. So if we keep remaining engaged in the world of shopping and traveling and buying this or selling that, or acquiring more wealth, then the mind will remain engaged with that. In order to distract the mind from those engagements of the world, we have to give them the dose of the divine, give them the dose of the almighty. It will experience a greater pleasure, and then it will leave all these things aside. These things will become inferior. The pleasure of the almighty will take over, and the mind will completely start distracting from the world and start getting concentrated towards the almighty. Then we talked about the habits. Habits develop over time by repetitive action, and they become mechanical over time. We don't even realize that we are doing it. Like, for example, when we drive the car, we don't even realize where is the clutch and where is the brake, and everything happens mechanically, automatically. Exactly the same way, there are many habits which become totally mechanical. We have to get out of that mechanical process. We have to be present, we have to be conscious, we have to realize that I am the one who have to do it, whether it is good for me or not good for me. We have to analyze each habit. Habits which are good, we should cultivate them. Habits which are not good, we have to abandon them through sankalp, through determination, through iron will. We have to get out of that. And then we have to understand the nature of this world, that this is a cycle, this is a movement. This appears dual, but it is not really dual. It is one single unity which is reflected everywhere. And then we get out of the feeling of that I am the doer. The feeling of doer has to go away. Once that feeling goes away, then you are very close to the Almighty. You are almost there. You are at the door of the Almighty, at the what you call culmination of yours, all the sadhana you are doing. So I think these processes will take us towards the divinity. And the real test is that you should, inside you will feel more and more happy all the time. As you rise, your happiness will increase, your level of energy will increase. You will become less and less bothered towards the happenings of the world. So these are the symptoms inside you will develop. You will become, uh, you know, a sort of, very strange feeling of happiness start appearing. It will increase all the time, and you will not be restless. You will not be distressed. The outside world will not be able to disturb you much. That feeling will start coming, and then you will feel that yes, you are closer to the Almighty. Then you will not be bothered who is praising you and who is condemning you, or who is telling you abusive language and who is using language full of praise for you. All those things will slowly disappear from your personality, and you will become still. You will become sthit pragya. That is the word which has been used in Bhagavad Gita. You will be established in yourself, and you will establishing in yourself means you are expressing yourself as divine. You will become Aham Brahmasmi or Tattvamasi. That feeling will start coming to you. It does not mean that you will become egoistic. No, the ego will completely disappear and you will surrender to this existence. So I would like to end this topic here today, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.